So he said, who's the largest bank in the country? So he said, the State Bank of India is the largest bank. Who do you think we should speak with? I said, let's check out their website. Back in the day, they used to put their entire org structure on the website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they had a person whose name I still remember, RVLNRG Prasad. I remember that whole name. I have his visiting card after 23 years. And it said head of internet banking. So I said, cool, let's go. Don't spread yourselves too thin. In every market is painful in its own way when you're trying to break new grounds. We can't be everything to everyone in every customer market. We learned our lesson. We can't set up shop in every part of the world. We became victims of our own success. And I was getting super bored. So I told my wife that, when I look back nostalgically at my career, the part where I felt most alive was when we were struggling to make payroll. When every month we were struggling, will we have enough money in the bank to pay everyone's salaries? When we were struggling to get the big business deals, the big banks to sign up with us. That's when I think I was having a lot of fun.
Hi, KK. Welcome to the Be Fearless podcast.
Thank you, Vivek. Pleasure to be here.
So, KK, you and I go back a very, very long way, and I'm sure a lot of interesting things are going to come up in the discussion. But, I personally look at you as one of the pioneers in the Indian cybersecurity industry. I think when I was just starting off with cybersecurity, you were already like a very well-known name. One of the first few people who had been at Black Hat, DEF CON, I think a bunch of other things. So if you could just go back in time and you could just start off with, and back in those days, right, there wasn't much in cybersecurity in India actually happening. So tell me how you really got into cybersecurity at a time when barely anyone was.
Sure. So as far back as I can remember growing up, if you ask me, what do I want to do in life? What do I want to be when I grow up? It was always to build a business. Now, I don't know where that thought originated from because I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs or business folks as such. But that was always the idea that, growing up, that's what I would eventually do. And so I got into engineering college, though most of my family wanted me to do medicine and become a doctor. With the idea that once I finish engineering, then I would start some sort of a tech company.
Right.
And then in my second or third year of engineering, I started to get the itch a lot more that it seems like I'm wasting time in college.
Yeah.
And I was in one of the better colleges in Mumbai, VJTI.
Yeah.
So there was nothing wrong with the college. There was nothing wrong with job opportunities and stuff like that. So everything was kind of laid out. I even applied to universities in the US. I gave my GRE and TOEFL and I got admission letter from Georgia Institute of Technology, which was like my dream college, right? That's where I wanted to go for my postgrad. But anyway, and then I said, this is it. I'm going to start. And so I quit college. I actually dropped out. So this was the end of the third year. And I had 1 year of college to go. And I'd also got placements from Texas Instruments. And I think, and Texas Instruments used to be the highest paying job on campus at that time.
Back in the day, yeah. So I had that. I had admissions from US universities, and I had a year of engineering left. Yeah.
And I said, screw this.
Done all that, yeah. How do your parents take it?
So that's the most amazing thing. My parents were actually obviously quite shocked.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they didn't give me a very hard time about it.
Okay.
And I also gave them a little bit of I lied to them. I said, this is just a break.
Yeah.
I want to experiment by running my own thing. And this is back in the year 2000.
Okay.
This is before the dot-com boom. And I think it was the dot-com boom, but before the dot-com crash.
Yeah.
And so I said, I want to start a tech company. And, if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to college.
Yeah.
Now, as well as I do that in India, that concept does not exist. Once you drop out of college, there's no going back. There's no earned credits.
Correct.
And there's no come back and, do these courses and total up your credits and take your degree. Thankfully, they didn't know that.
Okay.
Or they knew it and they kind of bought into my BS line. They said, okay. And then I didn't know what to do. I actually sat at home trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to take money from my dad. So I started looking for odd jobs, software development jobs to get some capital, etc. Long story short, in looking for those jobs, I found a job for network security engineer in Infosys.
Oh,
and I was pretty intrigued. I said, I know about networks because we were learning that in computer engineering, but network security I never learned. So this looks interesting. And then I went online and looked for other companies, and I found that they, at least in India, there were none.
Yeah.
But in the US, Foundstone had just started.
Oh, yes.
At Stake was getting more and more popular.
Right.
DEF CON was around, and Cult of the Dead Cow was around. There were all these iconic things happening. Looking back, they seem iconic. Yeah, 2600. Yes, yes, absolutely. Bug Track, all the good stuff, right? I don't even think Nmap was released at that point in time. And so I said, this looks interesting, man. This is not typical software development. It's not infrastructure management. It's not running a call center out of India.
Right.
This looks very cool to do, to get paid to hack. And so I said, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay. Nice.
And so I took up a small office, I think about the size of this studio, about 200 square feet. And I sat and I didn't know what to do next. And that's how it started, basically.
And how do you go about like finding your very first client, very first customer?
So first I hired an employee. I put an ad in the classified section of the paper,
okay,
right? Yeah, this is obviously, before job portals, right?
No job portals in India.
And I said, I'm looking for a network security engineer because, obviously I need one. And so a guy applied and he joined me, and then he came and he sat in the office and we both are sitting. And then after a few days, he's like, KK, so what's the plan? I said, I've never had a plan, bro, but yeah, the idea is to, build this security. So he said, then where are the customers? I said, we don't have any. So he said, he didn't at least laugh at me because obviously I was going to pay his salary at the end of the month. So he said, who do you think could need this kind of business, this kind of work? So I said, banks, you think? So he said, yeah, banks. Shall we go talk to some banks? So I said, yeah, I think we should go talk to some banks. So he said, who's the largest bank in the country? So he said, the State Bank of India is the largest bank. Who do you think we should speak with? I said, let's check out their website. Back in the day, they used to put their entire org structure on the website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they had a person whose name I still remember, RVLNRG Prasad. Okay. I remember that whole name. I have his visiting card after 23 years. And it said head of internet banking. So I said, cool, let's go. So we picked up the phone, called the desk, the board number, and said, this is the guy we want to meet. They connected us. We set up a meeting. And by that time, I'd found some pretty serious bugs on the website already.
Okay. SBI site. Okay.
Yeah. And then he said, okay, fine. We'll give you a purchase order for what was like, I think, $500 or something of that sort. Yeah, about $500 worth of. So yeah, we'll give you a report, and so that's how.
Oh, nice.
And we got it, and I still have that copy of that invoice which I sent them.
You framed it up.
And it's lying in my office. It still lies back in my office. And that's kind of how it started. And then it was just one fortuitous, coincidental, step after the other.
Oh, they're very interesting, and I can only imagine. I mean, I still, and this was which year, by the way?
This is still 2001. 2001. Yeah, 2001. I incorporated in 2000, and this or 2001. Yeah.
I think our paths kind of crossed way probably roughly around I would assume 2007, because that was the time that I was getting into cybersecurity, and I to your point, right? There were a bunch of great companies in the US, Foundstone, At Stake, and everything. Nothing much going on in India at that point. So started Googling, and I had just moved to Bombay at that point. And I just started Googling, and I said, okay, let's see who's doing anything in cybersecurity.
Sure.
And my background really was that, back in engineering college, I had done a lot of cybersecurity stuff, projects and everything, but I felt like there was no need of anything like this in India. So that's when your name showed up, network intelligence showed up, and I ended up applying to you for a job. And I think at that point you were listing a lot of trainings. So I thought, hey, I could probably do the wireless one, the exploit research one, and all of that. So again, applied to you, you rejected me, I guess.
We couldn't afford you. We were that small, Vivek, we couldn't afford you. And though I regret it, but I feel happy that you didn't come work for us because you went on to do much better things in life. But I'll tell you why you might have seen our name or my name crop up.
Yeah.
So as I said, we had no work to do. And in 2004, I ended up also at Black Hat. That's a pretty interesting story. So the office that I was using, the office next to that was lying vacant.
Okay.
And the landlord used to come in like once a week and, just check for mail and stuff like that.
Okay.
So he dropped into my office. I was also sitting twiddling thumbs. 2002, 3.
Okay.
Not like we were flooded with work, right? And so this really old uncle from a small suburb of Mumbai comes in and he sits chatting and I'm chatting and he's like, I come from a family of astrologers and I love to listen to people, right? So I'm sitting and listening to him. And then in the second or third visit, he says, so son, what do you do?
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, how do I tell this guy who's maybe in his 60s, never probably used email that we do computer security or internet security. So I told him, uncle, what happens is that you get these bad things that happen in a computer like viruses. He said, you're in computer security. I said, yes. How do you even know this term? Like my parents don't know it. How do you know it? So he was like, oh, I have this nephew. He's out of IIT. He's running a computer security company and he's doing very well. I was like, who's this other guy in Mumbai that I don't know about? Because literally nobody is doing this right now. So I said, who's the guy? He said, his name is Rajiv Khanolkar.
Okay.
And I said, what's the name of his company? He said, it's called Net Forensics. I will connect you with this guy.
Okay.
He never connected me with the guy. I went on the Net Forensics website and I dropped an email to info@netforensics.com. Rajiv is also one of the successful pioneers in cybersecurity.
Okay,
Net Forensics was the first SIEM back in the day again.
Okay. Rings a bell, but I've never met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I wrote to him and he used to monitor that mailbox info even at that time, he was still reading mail. So he read the email and he was from Mumbai. So there's some connect in his mind and he said, let me write back to this guy. So he wrote back and we did I don't know even if we did a call on what, because there was clearly no Zoom back then.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to speaking and emailing and stuff like that. And he said, I'm coming to Mumbai in later this year. We'll meet, etc.
Yeah.
And then he said, I have a problem, which I don't know if you guys can help me solve. So what's that? He said, we're using some open source IDS to pull in network traffic and monitor for network security events. But on the web application side, we're not able to detect for stuff like SQL injection and cross-site scripting. These were things that were coming up more and more.
Yeah.
And he said, customers want that. And I said, sure, let me take a look. So I looked around. There was Apache had mod security. So I said, if I can configure mod security with the right regular expressions and monitor for different types of SQL injection and cross-site and all the attack patterns, basically, as many as I can, then those alerts could go into a syslog and then syslog would feed into Net Forensics and the problem would be solved. So that's what I built up for him. So I wrote a whole lot of mod security configuration files, and I said, this is how you can configure it. And if you launch a web app attack, this is how it'll get picked up and it'll show up in your console. And it worked. And he was pretty happy with that. And then I said, nobody seems to be doing anything around this. So why don't I write about this for Bugtrack?
Interesting.
No, which was the publication at that time?
Security Focus.
You're absolutely. Yeah. And they used to pay $500 an article.
Is it? Okay, wow.
So I obviously made it a 3-part article. And they paid me money. That was how we kept the money coming in through the door, through trainings and articles and stuff like that, because there were literally no clients as such. And then I said, and that article got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
And the editor said that this is good. Can you do stuff for us regularly? And then Black Hat released a CFP call for papers. And I said, doesn't seem like there's web application security was so new at that time, right? So I submitted my application. It got selected. In 2004, I presented at Black Hat on how to use open source to detect web application attacks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how you must have probably, because since I had nothing else to do, I was doing content creation.
And Security Focus, of course, back in the day, I mean, I didn't know of the hack.
Popular.
Sadly, I was reading articles. Had I known you could actually make money off it, I could have jump-started my career a lot earlier.
Then I wrote a 3-part article on Metasploit framework, because Metasploit was new.
It's getting popular.
Yeah, and it was getting very popular. And I said, how to use Metasploit framework. So those were good old days.
Good old days, yeah. Fast forward, right now, I mean, you're running a very big firm, 600, 700 people. probably hundreds of clients around the world. Now, then versus now, right? Like, what are the challenges that you are facing today? Of course, back then was, getting business, getting noticed. Of course, at this point in time, network intelligence is one of the premium firms in the whole area. So tell us, like, what day-to-day challenges that you kind of face at this point.
Do you want me to give you all of the stuff on the CEO life or on the industry side of things?
I would say you can start as like CEO, in the sense it takes a lot to scale a company, like 600, 700 employees and above. And cybersecurity especially, right? Because it's all about the nuances. You make even a small miss and things just go for a toss, right? Like versus many other service-oriented industries where it's easy to scale workforce, but cybersecurity is one where, there needs to be constant training, upgrading, and all of that. So I'm just curious, like the challenges of running the company and how industry-wise, things have kind of shaped over the years.
I think there are a bunch of challenges for us right now. Culture is probably my number one. So a lot of the reading I'm doing, a lot of the kind of self-education that is how do we rebuild the culture of a 20 plus year organization with 600 people spread across the globe, and post COVID, nobody's coming to office. You can't put posters of values and mission and vision and stuff like that. And, I do town halls and, maybe 200 people turn up. And I don't know where the rest of the 600 are, but so building the right corporate culture, I think, is my number one mission right now.
Okay.
Part of that is also quality, right? The way 10 pen testers in a company can do work versus when you have 150 people in just the pen testing team. How do you sustain quality? How do you and also a lot of our work is creative, right? Pen testing is creative, or even SOC is also fairly creative work in certain parts of it. So keeping that creativity in place, but also bringing in the rigor and discipline of process. I think those are some of the key challenges that we are working with. The other big one, of course, is that I think we are in a crisis in general when it comes to work in multiple ways. For example, I see that a lot of freshers out of good grad schools, be it in India or in the US, are just not finding jobs in cybersecurity. And they're applying to us for internships and stuff. I'm like, that's a pretty good school. I'm surprised that you haven't landed with a Cisco or a Facebook or a Google. So I think in general, and we've automated so much of the L1 level work through tools and AI, of course. So I think there is a crisis at entry level jobs. There aren't that many to go around. And that's going to create a problem as we want to build talent for the next layers of work. And also, I see with my managers, it's becoming very difficult or challenging for them to stay relevant because all the knowledge that, even for me, for example, and it bubbles up even more the higher up the hierarchy you are, that for leaders in today's world, how do you effectively lead? Because what you knew and what the experience that you've built up over 20 years is becoming more and more irrelevant with every day, right? So I really can't go back and tell my team, this is how I used to do it in 2005. And they're like, we're not even bothered to hear about what happened in 2005 and 10 and 15. So staying relevant is very difficult. I mean, I imagine the pen testers and the SOC team members looking up to their managers and thinking, what value are they really adding to my life?
Right.
And I think that same question bothers the managers as well. Then how can we be more effective in our roles? Where frankly, a lot of people have become independent. They don't need that kind of hand-holding. And then where they need it, there are tools and AI to help them. So I think that's a very interesting situation that's playing out all across.
No, I totally agree. And I think security especially is a very interesting field because it's always a second order thing, right? When newer technologies come in, there's always some security aspect to it. So the tricky part is that one has to keep reading and knowing all the latest tech.
Yes.
Unlike, in many disciplines of software engineering where you can just super specialize into just one thing and just keep going on, for the next 10 to 15 years, assuming, of course, the technology itself doesn't become obsolete. And that's really where, I mean, to your point, like just keeping that upgradation happening, keeping that learning happening. I mean, I can tell you sometimes in prospective customer calls, I hear a new term and I'm like, okay, why don't I still know about this, right? So, and there's a product explosion, there is a space explosion, topic explosion, and everything is technology driven. So things are pretty intense. So yeah, absolutely correlate with what you're saying.
You must be facing similar issues as you're building a very high tech niche product. So and it has to cut across different industries and different use cases. So
yeah.
How's that working out for you?
I think one of the things that I've always done is, I would say I was lucky that because Pentester Academy was an education company, by definition, I had to kind of look at a bunch of different topics and start to go deep, and so did much of the early team. And we were lucky that we were able to bring in most of those guys.
Okay.
So they were great developers, but they were also very good researchers. And to your point, without that combination, what tends to happen is engineering is always waiting for somebody to give them a product specification, feature specification. And if the engineering of a security company doesn't have a security mindset, they generally can't relate to the attacks and the problems. So I think, and that's one of the biggest reasons why, when we started the company, never wanted to hire like a head of products or a chief product officer, or frankly, even a VP engineering. And the big reason for that is I felt that over the next, at least the first 2 years, the whole product vision, the feature roadmap and all of that needs to be driven by somebody who kind of has experience in both. And as you know, that is a very deadly combination, but very difficult to find, right? Most of the time, folks with those kind of experience will probably start their own companies because they have greater insights into what the market needs and all of that. So I've tried my very best to make sure that we don't become an engineering product company. Rather, we remain a research-led product company, which, for cybersecurity, with attacks coming in, every few days, something very different. Without that mindset, a typical engineering team will grapple with it, right? Because engineering teams generally want that sense of certainty that, here's my 6-month roadmap, and that is sacrosanct and nobody should go touch it. So, that's the way we have been looking at it so far. But again, very early stages for us.
No, I've seen, the kind of stuff you're presenting at DEF CON, there's clearly a lot of intense research focus. It's not just we have an idea and we're going to engineer a solution around it, but we're going to keep researching in the space and breaking new ground. So I think that's a very potent combination.
Yeah. Like we've seen, right? Like over the last 15 to 20 years, the only time that an old security product line gets invalidated is when newer attacks come in, and it is almost impossible to detect those with those. And then all of a sudden you see, some emergence of new tech, which eventually replaces the old. So I think being a firm believer of that, it was very important for us right off the bat to make sure that our own thesis, that the old tech, which was secure web gateways and SASE SSE, that we felt was getting invalidated, if we could go out there and almost like, I would say, I would almost say like in a QED way, right? Like when you're proving a theorem, basically say without a shadow of a doubt, these are architectural issues which nobody can fix. And that's where we did DEF CON and everything. But switching back, I know that, you've been building a very interesting product as well. And I'm sure, a lot of it comes from insights from your customers. Would you want to kind of like double down on that? Tell us what it is about.
Yeah, this is not the first product that we've started building, but at least we are doing it differently than what we've done before. So when I started the company, actually, I wanted to build products.
Okay.
And that's how we started. So the second or third audit project that I got, we wrote a WMI script to automate Windows auditing. And then we created a product out of it. We called it Audit Pro. Failed.
Okay.
The first large network architecture project I got, which was in a telecom company, I sat in their data center to literally audit 100 firewalls. And I said, this is insane. We wrote a firewall analysis script that became FireSec.
Okay.
That didn't go anywhere. So we built out, and those are pretty substantial product categories today. Right. Even going back to the Black Hat paper, that's WAF, right? But didn't have the maturity or the vision or whatever you might say, the chutzpah to, take that and say, this is what we're going to do. And then you have services revenue coming in.
Yeah,
and that's addictive, right? Yeah. So some of our best pen testers were people we hired to build out the product.
Very nice.
And then we said, hey, Tawfiq, can you go do this pen test? And because he's been working on a security product, he does the pen test very well. So he's like, you do the pen testing bit, we'll hire somebody else. And the product never took off. So this time, what happened was that last year, I was feeling that we are in a limbo. We're kind of riding on our own success, and it's become like a franchise operation. Projects are coming in. Like my investors used to ask, KK, how are you guys scaling up? I said, have you seen a Mumbai local train? And so they said, what? I said, see, if you have to go from station A to station B, you have to just go and stand on the station A platform. The 50 people behind you push you into the train. Train takes you to station B. The 50 other people push you out. And that's how the momentum of cybersecurity was carrying us forward.
Right.
The fact that we had done 20 years of great work was bringing in more business through the door.
Yeah.
So we kind of stopped innovating. We kind of stopped differentiating ourselves. And then we had a couple of bad business quarters. And then I saw this AI wave coming. And then I started talking to my teams and we started introspecting. And they were like, no, we're great where we are. And nothing needs to change, KK. And AI is not going to make, that fear for change that we all have.
Absolutely.
And I tried to evangelize with them. I said, guys, look, if we don't embrace this change, it's going to blow us out of the water, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what you guys are doing now, Gen AI can do it. Be it, writing policies, writing up audit reports, even pen testing reports, you name it, right? AI. And if this is the impact of AI now, imagine every 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
So if we don't embrace this, let's start, we can see that tsunami coming. We're not even thinking of building a boat. Let's at least start.
Yeah.
Some people took up that message seriously. Most people did not. Which is what happens, your success becomes your biggest kind of drag. And so I went to the board and I said, we need to park some amount of money separately. Let's create a whole different unit. Let it talk. So I read this brilliant book called Loon Shots, which says that you have a franchise operation which runs successfully, but then it kind of plateaus and then it dies. There's a zillion examples of that sort, unless you're innovating. But that innovation can't run independent of your franchise. They have to have a beautiful synergy and they hate each other. But your job as the CEO is to build that synergy. So inspired by some of those ideas and, by the fact that if we don't embrace AI, if we don't bring that in and disrupt ourselves, it will blow us out of our business. So that's what we started doing. So it's an AI powered platform. The thesis is very simple. Anything in our business that we can automate, we're going around automating.
Fantastic.
So we've hired a CTO, Venkat, who's precisely the combination that you spoke about, engineering plus deep security knowledge, 20 plus years being a CISO, done a couple of product ventures already in security. And then we are going around and looking to solve specific problem areas within the SOC, within the GRC consulting team, within pen testing, and we're seeing where can we help reduce drudgery in your life. So we've built the first app, which helps prioritize vulnerabilities, because even after 20 years, that's pretty much a broken process, right? Most companies have thousands of vulnerabilities, don't know how and where to start fixing them, which applies to them, where the real risk for their organization in their context network lies, in terms of what's exposed to the internet, what's not, whether this SSL version really needs to be patched or not. So they're going by, if it's CVSS number, so 4 and above patch in 60 days, 6 and above patch in 30 days, 8 patch now, etc. So we're trying to bring a lot of method into that overall madness and saying, look, there is so much intel that you can bring into your vulnerability data set, and then really contextualize and prioritize it and focus on what matters most.
Okay, fantastic.
So you reduce that window of opportunity for the attackers to exploit known vulnerabilities. Right? So that's the problem area. Then the other one is, of course, on the GRC compliance side, which is the plethora of compliances and how do you, a new business venture you're starting or a new product you're launching or a new service a business bank is launching, how do you make sure you're ticking all the boxes and everything is compliant? So eventually we believe that that GRC app will actually automate a lot of what the consultants do and help them do like 10x more of what they're doing now.
Yeah. No, fantastic.
Yeah.
I think, definitely in one of the following episodes, you and I should definitely talk in super depth about, the product company that you're building and what we are doing as well. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, KK. This was fantastic. Great discussion. And
my pleasure,
hope to have you on the show once again.
Yes. Hope so too. Thank you.
KK, thank you so much again for joining us today.
My pleasure, Audrey.
We have a very broad set of listeners, so some of them are researchers, but many of them are also practitioners, either founders or people who are scaling cybersecurity companies. And it's no secret that channel partners are an essential element of that. But at the same time, it's also such a broad term. It encompasses so many things from system integrators to, MSSPs and VARs. Could you maybe start at the very basic and share what you consider to be a channel partner and how you think about classifying them?
Sure. So as a services company, I think our definition of channel partner might be different from what the industry typically. So let me talk about the industry classification first. Yeah. So when it comes to industry, you have, resellers and you have distributors, right? So distributors are, the bigger guys with the deeper pockets, who can manage larger working capital requirements. They can navigate through customs and excise and all of the tax and import-export angles to get stuff into the country. And, again, usually in security, we used to talk about the boxes, and now we don't have that many boxes going back and forth. But still, all that licensing and, and then the distributors have a network of resellers. Value-added resellers or system integrators who will then go to the customer and actually do the implementation, give the customer support. And each, the distributor and the reseller will obviously take some margin for the effort that they put in. But obviously the bulk of the money is going to the product company. So the margins in this, for them, tend to be very thin. With newer product companies, they will, like if you went and signed up with a reseller that's well established or with a distributor, then they would try to convince you to give them a 20, 25%, 30% margin, could be more. But on something like a Microsoft or a Cisco, they'd be making like 1 or 2 percentage points.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Especially on the large licensing deals, like if you're doing 10,000, 100,000 E3 licenses, it's all in single digits. Even with established companies like Palo Alto or CyberArk or, in the security space, we'd still be barely, it would be a great deal that crosses into the early double digits. It would all be like some 10% margin at the reseller side. And then the reseller typically makes their money off of the services and the support, post-implementation support and those kinds of things. Yeah.
Got it. And for startups, when do you think is the right time to start working with these resellers or channel partners? Because on the one hand, early days is very important to be super close to the customer and get that product feedback loop. But at the same time, at SquareX, we're very lucky that Vivek knows you very well and go long back. But for many founders, they don't have that relationship and it does take time to build that trust and understanding. So when would you suggest startups to start considering building, partnerships or relationship with channel partners?
It's a great question because we've been on the side of partnering with companies like yours, and many of those partnerships have not gone great. And I'll tell you where we've seen them go wrong. Clearly, you see the importance of being close to the customer. So you don't want to put in a layer too soon.
That's right.
But if you're talking to all of the customers, then the question that comes to a channel partner's mind is that what's in it for me and how will you make sure that I land the deal and you don't hand it over to some other partner? Because let's say you go to a big bank, they might say, you know what, network intelligence isn't the company we want to work with. We want to work with Optiv. We buy everything from Optiv.
Yeah.
And so go talk to Optiv. Now, I have done all the hard work on the deal with you, but now the deal simply, and what can you do? You're just going to shrug your shoulders and say, look, that's what the customer is saying. So there is that entire dynamic at play where you being close to the customer can be a cause of insecurity to your chosen channel partner. The way to deal with that would be to say, Optiv, go buy from network intelligence
Yeah.
and make me kind of a semi distributor, not really a reseller. But then everybody's margins are getting cut over there.
Yeah.
So it's not a fun situation. I think it's important that when you sign up with channel partners, you understand that you're a new company and it's going to take you at least 12 months to close a deal, probably. So you can't, for example, tell us that we'll do a deal registration for 6 months. You have to tell us that if you take us into a large bank or a telco or a healthcare company, this is yours for 12 months.
Yes.
We trust you. We may even end up doing most of the heavy lifting. And that's how partners like us would feel encouraged that, look, we're opening up our relationships and our networks. And but they're not choosing the easy way out. They're sticking to us as well to make the deal happen. So I think that's the kind of balance you want to. The other challenge for you is that if you go to a large reseller or distributor, they're already carrying 100 security products. And then you're yet another one. And they're not going to give you that. Their sales team is not going to give you that bandwidth. So you have to be careful. That's true for us as well. As we were speaking, that my sales team already carries about a dozen relationships that they need to justify, and make successful in the market. And when I give them the 13th one, the general response is, KK, can you just back off on adding more to our plate? So as I said, the answer might be that you choose us as, you look at us as somebody that can open the door, but then you might have to do most of the heavy lifting, but yet the deal still stays with us.
No, that makes sense. And on that point, how do you typically think about onboarding a new product? I understand there's the economics part of it, but do you have a strategy? And like, I see my customers looking for this part. Maybe my customers is looking for a typical type of product. How do you think about, hey, in the next few years, which ones do I want to look at? Which areas of cybersecurity I want to expand into? And how do you go about selecting the right vendor for that?
That's an excellent question. And we've had to deal with this problem for the last 1 or 2 years. And what we've done is that we've created a center of excellence where we have a few key platforms. So we've built a lot of deep expertise on Palo Alto, on IBM QRadar, on Tenable, on Checkmarks. And the thesis that we've adopted is that most of the time we will go with the platform. We will not go with point solutions. Okay. Unless that platform absolutely cannot fix that problem. So if you came to me for cloud security, I'd go back and say Palo Alto. I would not say a Wiz, or I would not say, point solutions of that sort. If you talked about SASE or EDR or XDR, we'd say we can support CrowdStrike and Microsoft, but our expertise is Palo Alto. Our relationship is Palo Alto. So we remain loyal to them. They remain loyal to us. There's joint marketing efforts and all of that. So we are wary of adding a lot of new technologies. And so what we do when we see a company like yours, which to me looks exciting, to me looks relevant in the market, then I will give it to my team that runs that center of excellence. They will install it in our environment. They will play around with it. They will give me feedback that this is the use cases that we saw. This is how easy it was to deploy it. So we will be a customer in that sense. And we will then do an evaluation of that technology. And yes, Tenable does not do this. Palo Alto SASE does not do it. EDR, XDRs don't solve it. It does solve what it claims to solve. Once we've confirmed that, then we will still probably not sign something too formally yet. Then we'll start talking to customers, which in our case, I've already begun doing. And when we see some traction coming in, then we will go and say that's what will convince my pre-sales team, my sales team, and my technical team that there is potential over here. Because I'm now going to pull them out and say, go invest in training and certification and get your hands-on experience with this new technology. So I don't want to be giving them something new every month. I want to be careful about what I throw their way. So that center of excellence is kind of our testing and proving ground for all new technology.
A part of creating a partnership construct that makes sense for both, your company and your sales team, what are the things that some, early companies or early technology product companies have done that enable, channel partners to do their job well?
One is, I think, a battle card that has clear differentiation outlined over there. Because the first There is this very interesting company that we partnered with called Obsidian Security. They're in a space called SSPM. How are they different from SASE yet again? How are they different from a CASB? That answer is very clear with Obsidian. And they have empowered our teams to be able to answer that as well. And clearly, we don't see that in the current CNAP, CASB partnerships that we have. So I think those are important. And then the training, the effort that they put in talking to customers versus just saying, just you guys do all the heavy lifting. So I think just pounding the pavement together as a partner. And again, very focused, select customers, not saying, let's do customer outreach to your database of 3,000 customers. Let's reach out to very specific companies. So that kind of a focused GTM, them also doing a bit of the heavy lifting alongside my team in the initial set of customer meetings, demos, POCs, etc. I think those things are important. And then some level of combined marketing spend on doing customer events and going to market jointly at conferences and things like that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And we talked about how, channel partners like yourself pick products and how it can enable you. On the converse side, if there was a founder or a company that was looking for their first channel partners, how should they think about it in terms of what type of partnerships? What is the selection process you would recommend them going through?
This is a really tough question to answer because there are so many security resellers and distributors and pretty much everybody does reselling today. There was a time when there was system integrators and there were services companies. Now everybody does everything. I think what you're probably wanting to avoid to begin with is the really big distributors and resellers. They might not even give you time of day to begin with anyway. And even if they did, even if you signed up with one of the large VADs, you'd be one out of 200, 300 products that they're carrying. So probably what you want is first to identify your target market, that this is my ideal customer profile. Go talk to those customers and ask them, if we had a reseller to work with, who would you prefer? Who would be your preferred reseller? And if you hear the same 2 or 3 or 4 names coming up, then that kind of gives you an idea of who would be good. And start a conversation with these small to mid-sized resellers to begin with. Don't do anything exclusive initially. Do a testing of the waters, see how many leads or opportunities they're able to get. But I think, again, very important that you focus on which market is important to you. Because like with us, we could take you to India, we could take you to the Middle East. Are you ready to go in all of those places? If US is your focus, then that's a different thought process. Within the US, which market, where's the sweet spot? That's important.
Yeah. And when negotiating these constructs, you mentioned exclusivity, right? Is there any other clause or aspects that you would recommend people to be careful and mindful of?
It's mainly, even if you give exclusivity, it should be for a particular region, time-bound, stuff like that. The other is in terms of, you want them to also have skin in the game. So you want them to also commit to investing in getting certain number of people trained, certified, doing at least one customer event every year or every quarter, some of that kind of stuff. Payment terms for sure.
Yeah.
Because this is a very cash flow intensive business. Customers don't pay on time in a lot of markets. So, but for you guys, it's easier. It's subscription. You can just switch off the subscription if you don't get paid. But yeah, so I think payment terms, the investment of time, money, people from their end and from your end, and identifying the specific market that you want to target jointly.
So for companies that are still scaling, we broadly see 2 strategies. One is where they say, okay, my core market is India or the US. So all my direct sales and channel partnership efforts are focused on that region. The other one is probably saying that, hey, we're going to do direct sales, let's say in the US. And for other regions like India or Japan, which maybe require local relationships and support, we'll go the channel partner route. Any preference on either of those strategies?
I would say the same thing. Don't spread yourselves too thin.
Mm-hmm.
In every market is painful in its own way when you're trying to break new grounds. For example, pre-COVID, we were doing so well that we expanded to the Far East. We set up an office in Australia. We set up an office in Netherlands. Every time we got a customer in a market, we went and set up some operation there.
Mm-hmm.
And then many of those went belly up. And we shut down a number of those, 3 or 4 of those operations. We actually shut down. Australia, we shut down. We said, we can't spread ourselves that thin. We can't be everything to everyone in every customer market. So I would say the same. I mean, we have a different strategy for the markets, 3 main markets that we are in: US, Middle East, and India. But we're not aggressively expanding into Africa, for example. Nope. Can't do that. ANZ, not doing that. Southeast Asia, not a priority market. So as you said, we work with a partner, opportunistic, get a project, do it, come out. We don't have a business plan. We're not investing in sales teams, stuff like that. So we kind of keeping our focus on these. So we learned our lesson. We can't set up shop in every part of the world.
And interesting question for you, given this topic, right? When do you call it quits? Let's say you're working with a customer, whether it's a product company or maybe a startup working with a channel partner. It does take time for your sales team to actually learn the product, maybe get momentum with the customers. But when you say like, look, this is not working, we have to stop and cut our losses and maybe focus on other channels.
All the breakups that we've had haven't been a pivotal moment where, we sat across the table and said, get lost, it's not working out. It's always been like a slow demise. You're down to your last 3 customers, then 1 customer, and then 0. And it's kind of eventually ends up being a bit mutual as well. You lose interest in that relationship, they lose interest in the relationship, and then you don't start renewing customer contracts. They go with somebody else for the renewals, or they start pressuring you on margins. So there's never been a moment. Or they get acquired, and then we see that the acquirer isn't very interested in the whole category. So that's happened as well. But it's never been like a one distinct moment where you say, this is it. It's usually a slow deterioration of the relationship.
As with many breakups.
Yeah. No, and in this case, you can actually go back. So we did this. So there was a time when we were growing our reselling business pretty aggressively. This is 2018. And then we got investors on board. And the investors looked at our financial statements and they said, this is the business that's taking in all of the working capital. All of the free cash flow that you have is plugged into accounts receivables.
Yeah.
It is the lowest margin business. Why exactly are you guys doing this? We said, okay, let's not do too much of it. And so we withdrew slowly from those partnerships. And for the next 6 years, we didn't do anything much. And now we're going back and we're saying we need to do this. This is important. It's table stakes. We're losing out on a lot of large deals because we don't carry the resale relationship with us. And so we've gone back to those partners. And after a little bit of, are you guys sure? Because you ditched us last time. Now they're like, most of them are like, open arms, come back in. Yeah. We were waiting for you guys to figure out that we need to do this. So all of the partnerships that we have, at least half of them were ones we had 5 years back, and we kind of pushed back on the reselling bit and being their channel partners. But when we went back, they were, which is not what would happen in a most likely relationship.
And on that, how often do you introspect on why did something not work out? Was it, the problem that was maybe not really as big as you thought, or was it the product that's not particularly the right fit? So, and we all carry our own baggage of when things don't work out. We feel like, oh, maybe, browser security is not the right industry, for example. But how do you know it's the problem of the product or market timing or anything else?
Again, this is something that you learn over a period of time. I remember this one partnership we had with this IRM company. And while I met the founder and I told him, are you sure this is it? Because Microsoft seems to be coming in pretty strongly into the information rights management space, digital rights management. And it seems that they're going to embed this into Office 365. And he was like, no, we have a lot of differentiation and, we will survive. And they didn't. But we invested a lot into that technology and stuff like that. So it's very difficult to predict which one will work out, which will not. The market usually tells you. And then as I said, learning from that, we generally go with the platform because that's what we know our customers will do.
Yeah.
If Microsoft solves X for them, even if it doesn't do that amazingly well, they will choose the Microsoft way naturally than implementing yet another security technology in the data center. So that's what we've kind of brought our philosophy around to as well. That where there's a platform, we'll go with that. But usually the market tells you, the customer, if you, as you said, you want to be close to customers, the customers will tell you, KK, this is what you're looking at, I get it from my SASE or I get it from, it's not that big a differentiation. I'm not convinced yet. Or you will start seeing, analysts come out with categories for that. That's a good sign because they're hearing from the market as well.
Yeah.
They can see that this is picking up traction. So they will come out with vendors to look out for and those kinds of research papers. Yeah.
KK, any final advice for practitioners who are thinking of working with channel partners?
Like I said, the relationship is very important. You may make the business happen, you may not. So respect for the relationship which you're building with the channel partner, and the channel partner has created over 20 plus years. Most of these guys have been around for 15, 20 years. They know the customers by first name basis. They know their dog's name. They know where their kids go to school and stuff like that. So that's the kind of relationship that you're looking to tap into. So you have to have a lot of respect for that. And they invest a lot of time and effort in their people, in getting them trained and certified on, Microsoft, CrowdStrike, you name it, etc. So you're now trying to get more mind share on that. So whatever you can do to make it easier for them to help you, even to the extent where you may deploy a person in their team and say, we'll pay for this guy's salary, but they will sit with your salespeople and go and do the pre-sales, right? So that close and relationship you can look to create. So I think that's what the key is, to really value the relationship over immediate. And for you guys, it will take time for the big deals to land. But from what I hear, you guys are doing very well. There's traction coming along. So the multi-million-dollar deals are not too far away. But it will all depend on, it's all relationship.
No, definitely. I think everything at the end of the day is a people's business, right? But KK, really appreciate your time. Always enjoy speaking to you. I feel like you're a very candid and introspective person. So really appreciate the advice you've given to a lot of our listeners.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Audrey. Thank you.
Hi, KK. Thanks again for being here on our Be Fearless podcast. I want to explore more of an area from CISO's point of view, because from our side, we spent quite a lot of time researching what do CISOs like, what do they dislike, and what are some of the use cases that really intrigue them. So when it comes to your product, what do you think, top 3 areas that get CISOs excited about your service?
That's a great question. You should ideally ask a CISO that question. I think CISOs have a very tough life. Maybe the toughest job role in a company is a CISO. And I'll tell you why. One is that the world out there is getting intensely bad, worse. It's an exponential curve of how intense cyber threats are today, and they are becoming. Then the business and technology is expanding and getting more complex, and just want to do new stuff all the time.
You have to stay up to date, yeah.
And in many industries, the regulators are also equally burdensome. And so in the middle of this kind of 3 pressure points sits the CISO. And he or she is the single person responsible for all data protection and privacy decisions, pretty much. So I don't envy them their job. I remember about 6 or 7 years back, I was pretty frustrated running the company. And I told my wife, what if I sell this and I take up an easy job as a CISO? Because it looks like these guys have an easy job. Today, I would never ever think that. right? Because it's almost like a Damocles sword that's hanging on their heads. Anytime something goes wrong, they'll be the first to lose their job.
I think a lot of CISOs can relate to
It's
this.
a thankless job.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that come people like us and saying, buy from us. We're good. Buy from. And how do they make that decision? How do they even decide to let you in the door to make that first presentation? It's difficult. I mean, you guys, I think you were at RSA.
Yes.
How many exhibitors were there? About 3,000?
There were quite a lot. I wasn't there at that time.
But I mean, that's the scale at which security industry is at, right? In terms of offerings. And so if you're a buyer, how do you figure out which one of those 3,000 companies I should put
so
money
how
in?
do you?
There was an interesting article I read that probably there is no effective way for a CISO to actually evaluate if the technology works or it doesn't work.
Okay.
So how do they then decide whether to invest in, suppose they're buying a CSPM, right?
Yeah.
There must be 100 CSPM vendors, of which at least 20 would be in their neck of the woods. So how do they decide which CSPM to go with? So maybe is it a big enough name? Is it Palo Alto or Microsoft? And maybe it already gets a foot in the door. Is it backed by a great VC? They must have done some validation to back this technology. Then that gets a foot in the door. If I'm a bank CISO, did the CISO of the bank down the road also buy the same technology? That's another big, checkbox ticked over there. So it's kind of a lot of these criteria that also are playing a major role. Because who has the bandwidth to test out, 5 or 7 or 8 CSPMs and then decide? Or at least, you may get to 3 and then but how do you get to even the 3 that will undergo a POC, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of these factors that are also at play. It's not just that does your product really do the job it's claiming to do? Does it do it well? But it's also that, who backs you, who else has purchased the same technology? Does it integrate very well with the rest of all the ecosystem that I have? If I have CrowdStrike and you don't have a CrowdStrike integration, then that's already a big problem for me.
Exactly.
Because I now have to see yet another console. My team has to see yet another console and another policy configuration screen and stuff like that. So it's a lot of these factors that are at play. And especially today when budgets are very tight. So budgets aren't what they used to be, even in security, right? So CISOs are generally being very careful where they spend their
That
dollars.
makes me think, like, if we had to define 3 areas that they mostly focus on, is what kind of reputation you have, how easy it is to integrate your product, and budget. I think
it's probably yes. I think from all the rambling that I did, you nailed down to the main 3 points.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah. So, but there are so many threats that keep on coming out, and even our DEF CON talk, we talked about how speaks are getting broken, and right now we started noticing a lot of interest in this space as more threats are coming out, the more solutions coming in. What do you think is attracts the most attention from MSSP point of view, that you think, this is the relevant threat that we should look into? This is like on the top of CISO mind.
I think the space you guys are in is pretty exciting. Endpoint security, which is not being solved by EDRs and by SASE and secure web gateways, right? The malware is still coming into the endpoint through the browser. So I think that's a great vector that you've come upon. As an MSSP, the easiest for me is I have a menu of offerings, right? There is vulnerability management, there is AppSec, there is security monitoring, incident response, threat hunting. There's like a restaurant menu with pricing per unit.
Yeah.
If I can slide in another item over there, life is very easy for me. So if you can commoditize your offering and say, in the 3 or 4 buckets of MSSP services that you have, this fits in over here, and this is my per user pricing, and this is how easy. You don't even have to do anything. As soon as you get a customer, we'll take care of everything. It's SaaS, policy configuration is easy to do, etc., etc. it becomes very easy. That's the direction in which, things even like DLP went. And even PAM is going to some extent in that direction. So I was very excited about what you guys are doing with some of the PAM vendors, because we are also looking to offer PAM as a service.
Exciting.
Exactly. And then endpoint protection, if this can go as an additional layer or line item with that, then that's pretty cool.
Yeah, of course. It's very cool when you can make the whole integration process as easy as possible for the end user. Because let's be honest, all innovation comes from laziness. We just want things to be as easy as possible to integrate. That our human mindset is just, yes, we're adaptive to change, but not to the extent that it's too dramatic to change our whole new idea. And that's why when it comes to enterprise browsers and just browser security in general, we just want to be as open and make the process as easy for the end user.
The other idea that I had, and probably you guys are already doing this, which is to give away the product for free, get it already in use in the enterprise. And then, the security engineer comes up and tells the CISO that let's just buy the license for this, because the features we get from the paid version. And then you don't need the VCs and the other ticks in the box, right? Because it's already adopted in the enterprise. So that's been a pretty successful strategy for a lot of companies. So if you can get adoption in the engineering community, security engineers, desktop engineers, etc., they start to love your product and they feel that it's solving a problem and it's free and it's just a Chrome plugin. And then you have the commercial version.
But this is, I don't know if we mentioned before, but this is what we actually started from, like launching the customer version. And we have over 200,000 people that are actually using SquareX extension and seeing the value. And I think Vivek's LinkedIn is just overflooded with all the responses. Hey, this is so awesome. And we really love it. And actually the community, the whole engineering community helps us to build this deeper relationships with companies where, let's say, engineers start to use it and then it goes up, and then it eventually reaches CISO level. So,
right. That's the easiest probably. It's tough to get it right. It's not easy to get that whole strategy right. Yeah. But that's, the most convincing path to the buyer's table.
Yeah. But going to more entrepreneurial side, build such a big company. And as you said, the environment right now is so tough. Someone that graduated from great university and struggling to land a position at Cisco. What do you advise this early entrepreneurs, the steps that they should take to, become as successful as you are?
I think both, Vivek and I are followed the same strategy. We were influencers probably in some way or the other before influencers became what they are today.
If there are three things, you say one.
I will speak, then you narrow it down and summarize it to the three. Okay, let me try and say three. I think one is a personal brand is very important. That worked for Vivek, that worked for me. I think that's very important. The way you can build a personal brand is just giving value out there, right? Just putting out interesting, entertaining, informational content that helps people. If I remember correctly, Vivek, even your Pentester Academy was free for the longest time, right? And then you created a commercial version of courses from it. So that's probably what somebody starting off should do. Invest a lot in yourself, learn the tools of the trade, try to break new ground, give yourself problems to solve, write a blog, have a YouTube channel. Yeah, just put yourself out there. And then once you've done all of that, maybe you don't even need a job anymore. Maybe that...
like you started, right? You started creating
you
content.
then may go into business for yourself, right? And then you scale or you don't scale, but that's your call. But you then don't depend on somebody reading a resume amongst thousands of resumes and then deciding.
That's true.
So I think that would be the most important focus. Pick one area. Maybe it is container security or API security or whatever it is, right? and then just go as deep as you can.
And what are the other two?
LLM testing, there's so much interesting stuff happening out there. You could just pick anything and then be the person for that topic.
What are the other two?
So going back to one of the issues that we do see with people that we are hiring today is, and this kind of contradicts what I just said, but I think it's a fine balance, which is also don't become too focused. At least in cybersecurity to be good, you definitely need to know a lot about a lot. And then you could go deep into one area. Okay. But for example, I don't think you can be good at LLM testing if you don't understand web app, if you don't understand API security, if you don't understand infrastructure security. So I think also try the initial start of the career, try to be broad-based. Yeah. One of the issues I've always had is when young people who've just started in the field come up and say, no, I can't do network, I can't do a firewall configuration review because I've only done web app testing. I'm like, but that's part, yeah. So I think being, and the third piece of advice would probably be get off social media unless you're creating content for social media. Don't consume. It's such a drain. It's such a drain of time and energy, And once you get hooked onto it, so that frees you up to do a lot of other things, to read, to learn. So yeah, I sound like an old uncle when I say this, but I definitely feel that you should mind how much time is getting sucked into just mindless social media consumption.
Since we arrived here, I don't remember last time I watched Netflix. It's been a while.
Exactly. Actually, if I say it's the same to you, I haven't seen a show or a movie on Netflix or Amazon for years now, 2 or 3 years maybe.
Oh, wow.
It's not that I don't consume crappy social media. I do it.
Okay, thank God you're human.
Yes, we're all addicted to it. So I do spend time on YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, the less you can, the more you can gain control of your time, the better it is.
Okay. I'm glad that you brought this point up, because there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, I wake up at 5 a.m., drink my green juice, work out.
I wish. I've forever been trying to wake up at 5, but I'm not an early riser. So
yeah, but it just gives opportunities to people out there in cybersecurity industry that are just getting started. Like, okay, I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. I can't be an entrepreneur, right? You still can do a lot of things and still end up being so
you
successful.
Have to balance things out a little bit for sure.
Yeah. But so how are your first weeks in the Bay Area? You just moved in here. How's it been for you?
Actually, it's not officially announced. So by the time this comes out, it's fine. I saw the question. I was like, that's fine. Because I assume that there are a few weeks we have before this comes on social media. But
a surprise announcement.
I will try and make that announcement myself on LinkedIn before. Yeah. It's been interesting. So as I said, we became victims of our own success. And I was getting super bored. So I told my wife that, when I look back nostalgically at my career, the part where I felt most alive was when we were struggling to make payroll. When every month we were struggling, will we have enough money in the bank to pay everyone's salaries? When we were struggling to get the big business deals, the big banks to sign up with us. That's when I think I was having a lot of fun. She said, no, you were no fun at that time. Let me tell you that. You were a pain in the wrong places. So I said, yeah, but I still feel very nostalgic. So I think I need to go back to struggling. So she said, okay. And she's been a great sport about it. So she and my 2 kids, so we sat down, we had a family conference and we said, what if we move countries? They were like, why? We're really having a good life here in India. So I said, we should explore, we should put up, push. I want to push myself out of the comfort zone. Yeah. So they kind of, after a few weeks of discussing and debating, they kind of came around to it. My kids are small. So for my son, it was that Lionel Messi has started playing for Miami. So he was like, will I get to see Messi? And I said, yeah, sure, of course.
The main reason to move here.
Yeah, because he is mad about soccer. Yeah. And my daughter was like, will you take me to a Taylor Swift event? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? I didn't check ticket prices back then. I did that later. And then I told her, maybe
in 5
next year. Yeah. So I kind of conned them, but they were pretty cool about it. So yeah, we are here. It's been an interesting few weeks. Building life in a new country, getting bank accounts and social security numbers, and
that's a lot of fun.
Driving on the other side of the road and doing all the math about the date format is different, and it's miles and gallons and ounces and not the metric system. So yeah, it's interesting. We've learned how to cook. Oh. Yeah, so we're teaching ourselves how to cook. We've never cooked for our lives.
That's a problem of entrepreneur, like learning how to cook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's awesome. What is if you could advise one, I don't know, either cybersecurity related or non-cybersecurity related book to read, what would it be?
So I read pretty voraciously. I read 2 or 3 books at any given point of time.
A month or a week or?
A book a week roughly, or at least in a fortnight I finish one book. It could be a mix of fiction, non-fiction, business, life, philosophy. But the book that changed my life, the book that set me on this path.
What is it?
Is a very strange book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And the book is neither about Zen and neither about motorcycle maintenance. But it's a phenomenal book. And I've read it 3 or 4 times since my 20s. So I would definitely recommend that. It's not an easy book. I made 3 attempts before I got to the first full read of it. So I would definitely recommend that. A book that I'm reading, I just finished yesterday, which is really given me a lot of food for thought, is a book called Creativity Incorporated by Ed Catmull. So Ed Catmull was the founder of Pixar animation studios. And then he became the head of Pixar and Disney animation. And of course, we've all seen Toy Story and Cars and Finding Nemo. So that's a great book about how you can never stop working on culture. And how the main goal of a leader is to discover problems that inhibit that culture of creativity. So when they were 20 people and they became 1,200 people, how did that culture break down, and how did they have to go back and work on it? And when they got acquired, they went public and they had the first success of Toy Story. What problems that created. So it's a very, very interesting book. So yeah,
I can imagine you could relate a lot to it.
Yes,
like all the struggles, and you were exactly in the same situation where you were struggling, and life became a little bit easier. So you decided to bring more struggle into your life.
I could relate a lot to it. So I've definitely made a bunch of notes from the book. But that's a very good book that I recently read. So
I think you gave such a great advice to all our listeners and cybersecurity and non-cybersecurity professionals out there, because at the end of the day, it's not only this particular industry, but also how do you become this entrepreneur? How do you make your company grow, and at the same time stay on top of things and make yourself struggle?
I think
that's the most
trying to stay on top of things as much as we can, right?
Yeah. But it's been awesome. Thank you so much, KK.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.